David, we start?
Yes, okay.
Okay ya. Hello everybody, fellows project manager. Selamat malam, good evening, good morning, and welcome to today's prank session number 65 by PMI Indonesia chapter. We will start soon the prank session. My name is Bimo, and I'm with PMI chapter Indonesia as board member, and I will be moderating this prank session. And if this is the first time you are joining our pranks event, we PMI Indonesia chapter would like to welcome you to this event. This session 65 is our first session in 2023, and behind the screen we have Mas David as the pranks program host, and Mas Ihsan coordinating today's event, and also our speakers. Pranks is a project management knowledge sharing. It's a webinar presented by PMI Indonesia to you, PMI members, and project managers community as a regular events to exchange experience, knowledge, and to share positive ideas and to build networks. In pranks, we invite speakers with various background, people working as project practitioners, project specialists, subject matter experts, and also consultants, trainers, coach, and leaders of the organization. You can join the online live event by Zoom or watch the recorded version on YouTube channel of PMI Chapter Indonesia. And if you would like to become speaker in the pranks session, you may contact PMI Indonesia program section. Today we will have Jesse Shiah as our speaker. To Jesse, thank you for speaking in our prank session. Good morning to you. Today's session is about, thank you, Jesse. Today's session is about citizen development, the missing link to digital transformation success. As you can see on my screen, as we know that the race to digital transformation continues, and the citizen development, which is powered by low-code and no-code technologies, it represents the biggest enablers of change to democratize and to decentralize the development of the application. Today, we will be hearing from our speaker the issue on this digital transformation, low-code technologies, and the main factors affecting the success of its implementation. For a brief introduction about our speaker, Jesse Shiah is a co-founder, Agile Point Inc. He dedicated his career to redefining the software development paradigm and democratizing process automation and application development. He has co-founded and also become the CEO of Agile Point, founded in Silicon Valley, and its main mission is to deliver disruptive digital advantage through the integration of composable model-driven technologies. We certainly would know more about this from Jesse directly today. Since 2003, Jesse has been a pioneer in low-code and no-code innovations, and to help organizations of any size, ranging from startups to big company, Fortune 100 company, to achieve process excellence. and accelerate digital transformation by enabling the citizen development. He also speaking on numerous high-tech conferences where he continues to evangelize the visions. And before we start, I would like to share some basic rules. As always, all participants will be on mute and a video will be turned off to save bandwidth and to improve the quality of the presentations. And if you have questions, you can type directly in the chat box. The session will be recorded and you can watch the recorded version on our YouTube channel. For our chapter member, e-certificate will be distributed to you automatically and auto submission of the PDU. And the recording, as I say, will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And last but not least, have a happy time and give us feedback about the program. Okay, that's the opening from me, and now I will give the control to the speaker. Jesse, you may have the control and start the session.
Thank you, Bimo.
Yeah.
Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Great. So firstly, I just want to thank you, Bimo, so much for the introduction, and I also want to just say good evening or good morning or wherever you are to everyone, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone. And as Bimo has introduced, my name is Jesse Shiah. I'm the co-founder of AgilePoint, and my primary responsibility is to set the company's vision and our product strategy to make sure that it's always innovation-driven, customer-centric, but most importantly is that it can make a difference to our society. So today, I'm going to share with everyone on the topic of citizen development, and I know many of you, either you are a chapter member of PMI Indonesia, or maybe you are joining from outside the Indonesia chapter. I assume that many of you are PMP professionals. And so you probably have heard of PMI has launched the initiative, the program called Citizen Development. And today I would like to share with you this journey that as a company, AgilePoint, we have started in 2003, actually developing technology to support this very important movements. And especially today, when digital transformation becomes the inevitable initiative that every organization needs to take. And citizen development actually to empower business to participate in that transformation together with IT has become very important and the inevitable capability for every organization to develop. So today I also have a few of my colleagues actually on the panel, CK, Yongsen, and John. And later on, when we have time, we will also get Yongsen to just do a brief overview of a platform that the key capability it can empower citizen development. Okay, so very simple. When we talk about citizen development, as I mentioned, that the digital transformation has taken the world by a storm. Right? Almost every organization are talking about they must go through this digital transformation, but it is not a project that you get started and you finish. It's a journey. So because it's a journey, and it really requires that an organization develop not just a technical capability, but a cultural. Okay, but at the same time, it's leverage the maximum human capital to participate in that journey and ensure that journey is sustainable, right? And in this case here, it also opens up an opportunity, right, for business and collaborate with IT and to develop that cross-disciplinary skills, because today's innovation in the digital era, many times now, it has to come from that cross-discipline. So with today's, was a topic, right? We're gonna learn a couple things, right? Here's a couple learning objectives. Firstly, we're gonna discuss why system development has a role to play in this digital transformation. Secondly, everybody, if you are involved, if you have heard of system development, as Bimo also introduced, mainly is empowered by democratizing software development. And one category technology has been called low code, no code, has been the key enabler to empower system developments. But not all the low code, no code technologies can actually sustain system development in a way, especially if you're looking to do this in a large enterprise. So we're going to discuss the different characteristics of these technologies and help you differentiate and identify what are the, what are the important capabilities if you're looking to adopt local no-code tool to empower system development. And thirdly, we'd like to wrap up the session and to validate that this is really the biggest enabler of change of a generation. So firstly, I'd like to start with one conversation that it really resonated with me and actually to some extent also inspired me in terms of the mission and the work we've been doing for the past almost 20 years. So once I was in a T-Mobile store in Silicon Valley, and I was waiting for them to open an account for me. So while we were waiting, and I talked to a young store associate, and apparently he just graduated from college. So we were chatting. He asked me, "So what do I do?" I told him that we are in the software development. We're a software product company, and we create a product to help people to simplify the software development. And he told me, he said, "Wow." So he said, "You know what? Today, I wish the school will make software development just like a mandatory for everybody to learn, just like mathematics. And it shouldn't be just something that's specialized for computer science students." He said, because today that almost become a skill now everybody needs. Very, very interesting for a young graduate, right? He studied accounting to have that perception. And at the same time, since I'm in Silicon Valley, many times I travel and I take Ubers between our office to San Francisco airports. And because we're in Silicon Valley, and each time I get into an Uber, almost like 8 out of 10 times I see the Uber drivers, immigrants. Okay, and then I chat with them. I say, "Hey, how you like driving Uber?" And I'm also surprised, right? Maybe we are in Silicon Valley here. 8 out of 10 times, I will get the same answer. They say, "Yeah, I'm driving Ubers right now. I'm saving money because I want to do something better to support my family or for other aspiration they have." And I say, "What would you like to be?" "Well, I heard that being a software developers that give you a lot of freedoms, that you can really develop your career with a lot more options. So I'm saving money right now to go to coding camps to become a software developer." And this is all people that without the computer science backgrounds. And I do know that a lot of people spend a lot of their life saving to go to coding camps, but they could not actually achieve that promise that they can actually become a software developer. So we like to see that after today's session, you know that this how system development movement can actually change the game for many of these people that have that aspiration. So in a way, right, if we looked at the market today, this is actually the US statistics, but I know that in different country, it could be different. So this is the data for 2020. Okay, about 36% of the people in the US have college degree. And maybe about only 1% is got computer science, right? And about 90% has high school diploma. But as we move on, right, into this session, we're gonna hear a lot of executives talking about their digital transformation initiatives are not going as fast or are not going as well as they expected. And the number one reason they always cited was they just don't have enough software developers. And this is why, right? Because if there's only computer science graduates can do the software development, then and every company out there have to go through a digital transformation journey, then inevitably that everybody will be fighting for that 1%, and there will be a shortage of software developers. And this is actually actual job post that we have posted as a company. And part of that, when we did this at the beginning, was more like a test, right? And so we say you can become a business automation application developer, but coding skill non-mandatory. Okay, when we post this job, and on Indeed, it suggested that we should allocate $1,300 a month for this job post to receive enough visibilities. We actually only allocated $100 a month. But surprising to us, right, as you can see here, this is as of last week, there are more than 7,500 people applied. Okay, and this just again validates how many people out there, they really have the aspiration, right? They want to participate, they want to break into the tech industry. And many of them will be just like what I shared earlier, the Uber driver, the Youngster associate, the T-Mobile, right? They do not have computer science backgrounds. And so this is really a big trend as we can see in the market. So if you are not familiar with system development, very simple. It's about to empower anyone who did not study computer science. But many times, the business users in a company are the best candidates, right? And that including project managers. And we're gonna explain why. So basically now we're gonna empower people without a technical background, without that computer science background, using local and local technology to accelerate the digital innovation. And we talk about the business-led digital innovation. And we're also gonna talk about, and that's why we say why system development may be the missing link to digital transformation, because we assume that if you're gonna do any development, most likely you're gonna need to have a technical background, and most likely could be, you need to be IT. And this is really where we are making the difference. And we say a business user turned system developers can be sometimes can be the best person to actually develop that digital innovation. And so in this case here now, it can be led by business. So let's talk about, okay, before system development, how do we develop software application today? The current paradigm. And we all know that with any digital innovation, it takes hardware and software together. And I'm sure that many of you have seen just any device, electronic device, how they have advanced over the last years, months, or even decades. But at the same time, right, software development has actually, in my view, right, stuck in the same paradigm for decades. Right? When I say that, is business who know the requirements explain to someone who studied computer science, who's a software developer. And then we're gonna depend on the software developers to be able to really understand the business requirements and translate that into code. That's what we kind of meant about this current paradigm, right? So again, from the hardware perspective, you can see this is really dramatically evolved, right? A lot of semiconductor really contains one of the basic components, for example, is a transistor. This is how large one transistor was in 1970s. And today, in one of the chip, right, it's got 16 billion transistor in that small package. That's how much hardware has advanced. And we talk about the software stuck in the same paradigm, right? This is really what we are saying. Business understand requirements. They explain the requirement to a developer, right? This could be a developers in the IT departments, but that communication is always subject to the degradation. And then the developer would translate that into code. And when this gets turned into code, well, here's my application. But at the same time, it's a business application. It could be automation. It could be any application. But at the same time, when it becomes an application, it also becomes a technical debt, right? It becomes difficult to maintain, especially if it was developed, it was created by developer A, and developer A now move on to a different project. You have developer B came in to try to make changes. That's when the challenge starts, right? And because of that, that's why we hear IT backlogs all the time. Okay, we're gonna actually give more examples why there's so much backlog as well. But and I know that as a project manager, right? You participate, your project's agile, right? But the agile methodology really does not change this paradigm. You only try to speed up this paradigm. Okay, and what we are talking about, and that's why if you see PMI talk about system development, sometimes you hear that you use the term super agile. Okay, and so this is really we are really talking about a different paradigm. And so I also like to share a story, right? And I talk to a lot of project managers, and one conversation really also really just hit me with a very strong impression, right? And I keep on, for me to think about how this current software development paradigm we just went through, we just described, how does it actually impact the career development of a project management professionals, right? So this is a project manager, and she told me she has been a project manager, PM for 15 years. And I say, okay, if you've been a PM for 15 years, how many projects have you involved? She say, about 5. And that really surprised me, right? I say, how come in 15 years you only involved in 5 projects? I say, how many industries? She say, 1, banking. And she said, just so you know, in banking, right, we create complex applications, and that's being created by coding. And each project takes easily 18 to 24 months or even longer to create. And after that, each time we want to make a simple change, even a simple change could take 3 to 6 months to turn around. That's why in 15 years, I only got involved in 5 projects and in that one industry. So I told her, I say, if you work on project was built with local technologies, involve system developers, right? In 15 years, you may, I would not be surprised that you got involved in more than 100 projects and maybe more than 5 to 10 industries, right? So spend the same time, but as a project managers, right, you could actually acquire much broader, right, much broader experience and subject matter expertise, right? So just an example, right, to think about. And so at the same time, right, we mentioned about this really has a lot to do with digital transformation. So in the US, we work with a lot of large enterprise, Fortune 100, starting with Fortune 100 enterprise. And of course, we also work with company as small as less than 200 users. Okay, so we work with company from all the way up to more than 250,000 users and as small as 200 users. And the digital transformation executive many times they told us, right, this is not a surprise, right? Everybody say their initiative are held back because they lack of developers talent. And then we say, okay, if your digital transformation is not moving as fast as you like, what type of application do you are lacking the most? And majority to us is the cross-functional application that will help them alleviate silos. Okay, and they also say that we really, because digital transformation is a journey, and we really need to make sure that we develop that capability internally, become more self-sufficient. And then we say, so what would you think that what are the trends in the market that you've been looking at that you think would be relevant, but you have not been able to adapt yet? And it was very interesting that we hear a lot of executives say, yeah, we heard of system development, but we know they can be used to build simple applications, but we have not heard of they can be used to create cross-functional enterprise applications, right? And if the digital transformation will be inside that they're really lacking this cross-functional applications. And so one key to break through that is we empower system developers are able to not only create simple applications, but enterprise class cross-functional applications. And that's why we're going to show you a few examples, why the success case studies that the organizations already empower the system developers, their business users to become system developers and doing that today. Okay, so we say they talk about they're missing the most, the type of application they're missing the most is a cross-functional. So what are other type of applications also part of what you need to work with during digital transformation? So this is more like a spectrum of just a different use cases, right? Starting from a task-centric application to a process-centric applications, right? It could be as easy as an Excel spreadsheet based applications to a form, to a mobile, to a database-driven application. An organization may adopt RPA. You may also have workflow applications at a departmental level, at the functional specific level. Then that's when you get to cross-functional, right? And simply, right, this could be how the complexity increasing. Okay, and so on the spectrum, right? Today, organizations also need to make sure that everything you created today, how they do not just deliver efficiency. It's not just about task efficiency or your process efficiency. It's how those applications can actually contribute to the organizational agility and resilience. And that's very key for digital transformation. Okay, because you only focus on efficiency. You are not doing digital transformation. You are only doing digital optimization, right? It's about how you create it and they can contribute to agility and resilience of the organization. That's when you start achieving digital transformation. And we're going to talk about how the local no-code technology will be relevant to also enable this. But as we say earlier, right, a lot of executives say this is really where they are lacking the most. Okay, so again, as we mentioned earlier, right, there's only 1% in the US, about 1% of all the college graduates have computer science degree, and everybody's fighting for that 1%. And no wonder there's a shortage of software developers, because when everybody needs to do digital transformation, and they assume that digital transformation requires you to develop more applications, and developing application traditionally, you must need somebody with that computer science background or training, a professional developer to do it. And no wonder that there's a huge shortage of software developers. Okay, and so now let's talk about why, how system development, right? If we talk about when a company goes through a digital transformation, how you actually impact the business. So we look at the traditional business today. Okay, and anybody, all the organization today, most likely if they have IT, right? And they've been operating as an IT-centric development. Everybody will have come from that background, right? Come from that, and today, a lot of companies are still IT-centric development only, right? In that case, the IT teams are being structured into, there's a team for ERP, there's a team for CRM, right? This could be SAP, Oracle, this could be Salesforce. and there's a different IT team are responsible for the main line of business systems. But when it's being structured that way, it's almost guaranteed, right? The company will become a silo because that IT team are specialized, dedicated for Salesforce. They will do everything with Salesforce. IT team are dedicated for that ERP, that SAP. They would do everything with SAP, right? And that's really where almost the story, doesn't matter how big the company is, we have heard everybody still saying that they have the silos. And why why such is a big challenge to the digital transformation? Because as you can see the difference now, those are the major systems. Look, think of the trunk, okay, of this tree are the major systems. But now if I become a digital business, I need a lot more other applications to fill the gap. And those applications are the one that enhance your customer experience, your employee experience, right? And to do that, many times you have to create cross-functional automation and collaboration across silos, right? So what we are saying, right, is those cross-functional applications. And however, it's not that only until today the business have those aspirations, say we need to create more of this kind of applications to bridge the gap. Businesses already have this aspiration for many, many years, but those requests tend to just become a backlog on IT's backlog. So now the opportunity here now is that a lot of this cross-functional, a lot of this fill the gap type of enhancing, the experience of customers, employees, and workplace, and partners, and your supply, ecosystem, right? They can be better suited to be built by business or the business user. That term becomes system developers. But who have those now? Because the business users have a lot more of those knowledge, the cross-functional, how the requirements cross different functions, because this kind of application is very difficult for IT to keep up. Okay. But in this case, if you're project managers, right, you are probably already involved in a lot of projects with this kind of knowledge, right? And that's why we say project managers are very, very suitable, right, to be able to become this type of cross-functional system developers as well. So that's why McKinsey kind of summarized that, right? If we only focus on doing automation, only focus on this functional specific improvement, you are not achieving digital transformation. You are really, in Gartner's term, you only achieve digital optimization, right? And that's why so many initiatives were reported failed. And so McKinsey was saying that this cross-functional, those are just a few examples, okay, are key to achieve that digital transformation, but we have to do that at scale, right? And that's why it's very important to empower business to be able to participate to do that. Okay, so now we talk about that, so we say now, okay, we need business to become system developers, right? And they can play a very significant role as part of the digital transformation journey for the organization. And they will be empowered by the local, no-code technologies. So let's take a look at how the technology is that mature enough, is that powerful enough, is sustainable enough to enable this very strategic capabilities. So this is actually coming from one of the PMI information from one of the PMI webinars for system developers. And it talked about 86% of the IT decision makers talking about, again, right, the biggest challenge to a digital transformation, shortage of software developers. Again, we keep on hearing that. And then they say 47% of the business already started looking to use local no-code. But the same thing, right? If more than 70% of the organization tried to do digital transformation and failed, how many organizations adopting local no-code to try to enable that? How many of them have succeeded, right? Again, that's why we want to take a look at the current state of the local no-code technology. So this is actually a Google search trend of the low-code, okay, since about 2003. Okay, you see there's a spike here, and then it become quiet. Then until about 2016, and it started showing. This spike here was actually triggered by the dot-com crash. Okay, and after the dot-com crash, people say a lot of companies say, we adopted a lot of technology. We thought we were getting business agility, and they realized that they did not. And so when digital transformation started in around cloud computing, 2007, 2008, 2008, and then big data, and then IoT, but a lot of large percentage reported the failures. And as we talk about, everybody attributed that is to be a shortage of software developers. And that's really when this 2016, right? Forrest and Gardner analysts started talking about low code. But at that time, the aspiration was, because of that, they say, how can we improve development productivity? And the technique was being used, main technique was being adopted to enable that code generation, right? And then when people realized that we need to empower more people to actually participate, that's when system development started. But the thing is, can code generation techniques also empower system developers? It may be okay for proficient developers to help them develop faster, right? But is that also suitable for system development, right? That's what we want to explore today. And today, if you see the low-code, no-code technology, it's kind of in two ends of the spectrum. But the low-code was created for professional developers, right? The code generation will get code out for the professional developers faster. But if I can get a code out to as we talk about, right, when you develop an application, at the same time, you also create a technical debt. If I actually get the code generated faster for developers, I'm actually accelerating the technical debt, okay? But business still cannot participate. So there's a no-code tools get created now to empower system developers. Say, okay, that's okay. We create no-code tool for business user, for system developers. But if I'm gonna adapt the low code generation technology to make it no-code, the only way it becomes possible is I confine the use case to be very, very specific. And when you do that, that's why in the market today, you see hundreds of task-specific or use case-specific no-code tools. Okay, a no-code tool specific to one use case, because behind the scene, you still use code generation. And the only way to make that code generation work, to make it similar to no-code, you have to confine the use case to be very specific. And the problem with this is, just like one executive say, I just don't see how this can be sustainable. In my HR department today, we already have 5 different no-code tools, and they were built by 5 different vendors. And they are just, they don't work with each other. And how can I ever manage that? What if I have another 5, another 10 in other departments, right? So this is really where the challenge, right, we are seeing today, right, when we try to adapt that. So and when we talk about, if you're using code generation, right, doesn't matter you have a low-code tool or no-code tool. In the end, basically what we are saying is we're just gonna accelerate the accumulation of the technical debt. Okay, so you don't see it. It's more like spending credit cards, right? You swipe the card up and down, but you don't feel the debt right away. But it's actually accumulating behind the, at the same time. Okay, so I want to talk about when I mentioned that AgilePoint got started in 2003, right? When we got started in 2003, remember I say that this spike here of the interest in low-code was actually after the dot-com crash. After the dot-com crash, a lot of companies say, we invested in a lot of technology during dot-com. We thought we were getting business agility, but we realized we did not. And that's when the people start talking about, if you need agility, then we need to cut down code, right? So that's when really AgilePoint started as local no-code innovation. And our goal, right, is that if I want to enable business agility, then we need to reduce complexity. If you're going to reduce the complexity, you need to develop local no-code without code generation, not based on code generation. So that's how we have been doing this for a long time, and how we have built it with different aspiration from the get-go. And this local no-code, right, in a way, not based on code generation, we believe is what it can really empower system developers to be able to system development to be sustainable, but also empower system developers to be able to create those cross-functional enterprise class application, all the way to create application at that levels of complexity. So to summarize that, right? So we kind of take the local no-code from the two extreme of the spectrum, right? It has to be together. Why? Because if this was built for professional developers, IT, and this was created for business, they need to work together. So you need to be in the same platform. So it's a layer architecture. But at the same time, we need to ensure that IT has as much governance as they need to feel comfortable. But they can still configure the different combination, different permutations of governance for different system developers, or different category of applications will be built by system developers, right? So there's a layer governance framework. Okay, so this is how we have changed the game. And in a way, as I mentioned, that this is very important to reduce the complexity. And we actually have a lot of customers we work with, right? When we started working with them, and they say, we've been looking for a role like this over the years, right? It's really, how can we help us reduce the complexity? Because that's the only way we can achieve an organizational level, speed, agility, and resilience. So if we do the same using this local technology that are not relying on code generation, this will be how it looks like, right? So technology, I can still build on top of any IT stack without rip and replace, non-intrusive. I can abstract the capability from a different IT systems I have, and then I abstract them into this abstracted business capability. I can start same thing, doing drag and drop visual, just like a lot of other local no-code tools. And where the confusion is, everybody say they all look the same, they all visually drag and drop it, but the difference is that after you've done that, does it get turned into code, or in this case here, there's no code generation. So what that means in this case, if I build applications, it doesn't contribute to my technical debts. And the other thing is, I build the application now, when I come back to make change, everything is still here. Instead of, this is just an intent of the representation, the actual execution is actually the code, right? So that's how this changed the game. And not only that, this enabled application you created now become a lot more future-proof, okay? And you can achieve digital transformation by creating more applications. It does not increase your technical debt proportionally. And IT can still, there's very strong governance. IT can continue to expand this layer to empower the system developers more. And this is why AgilePoint, together with a lot, quite a few of our fellow partners, right, also in the local no-code industries, that we work with PMI, right, to advocate this movement. And for AgilePoint, we are especially focused on how can we enable the enterprise system development. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a few slides to share, because I know that normally when I do this, I try not to get into too much of the company solutions, and I try to make it more educational, but I got the information that I think that it will be still beneficial to show the solutions at a high level, right? So again, this slide here just talk about, remember we talked about that local, no-code has to be in one single platform, enable function developers, IT, and system developers can work together, and in between, right? I mean, and then there needs to be a very powerful layer governance framework to ensure that the governance, right? If we take it to the next level, right? So this no-code, this is a no-code layer. This is a local layer, right? The no-code layer was a lot of out-of-the-box capability AgilePoint platforms already provide, and every day we are expanding all those numbers here, expanding it, increasing the out-of-the-box capability. But you are able to develop your own. Through this local layer, you are able to create your own additional activity. So it's extensible. And this is really, at this layer, what we call digital application factory, right? Because this is really where you empower the people, understand requirements, right? The business users, term system developers, are now able to create a lot of different applications to drive digital transformation, and is use case agnostic. So it's not specific to one use case. So for example, we're gonna look at the one case study. one of the Fortune 100 customers, they have their system developers build more than 2,000 applications just out of here by system developers. So it's more than 2,000 different use cases. Okay. And this this enable business and IT to work together. And the building application, so how do they build, right? This is actually if you're in developers, right, you probably heard of there's a front-end development, there's a back-end development, there's a full-stack development. Right? Many times you hear the actual developer say it's gonna take them 7 to 10 years to become a full-stack developer. With Agile Point, you'll be doing full-stack development from day one, right? Because full-stack means that I'm creating application that involving front-end, UI, involving logic, involving data. This could be the back-end integrations. Okay, so when you create applications, you do full-stack, front-end, back-end, logic, all together visually. So you become a full-stack developers from day one. Okay, and you compose, and then whatever you compose never get turned into code, directly executable. So when you come back to, you say, I need to improve now. When you come back, this never got translated into code. Even another person coming to take a look at what you built, everything is explicit, right? It's being totally preserved here. And that's why the business agility, everything, right, can come in. And we talk about it's not specific to use case, right? Use case are agnostic. That's why you can see from process related application, from workflow to all the way to cross-functional applications to task, right? Excel, forms, mobile, right? And the platform can, there's a SaaS version of the platform. You can also install this as on premises or on your own private cloud. And the application you created across those different deployments are identical, right? So it's a single code base to ensure that your assets are totally preserved, your investment. So I want to, as we mentioned, I want to talk, look at a few case studies, right? So I want to get started with something small, okay? This is a nonprofit organization. And when I talk with this nonprofit organization, they say, we just don't know how we can even be able to tackle digital transformation. We do not have a lot of developers, and we don't have money to hire them. How are we ever going to be able to achieve digital transformation until they found Agile Point, right? Because now they started to empower their users are not professional developers and now start to be able to create applications. And so they can do that with a lot less. Okay, so this is actually one Jonathan Funk, right? In this example, he was an IT help desk staff. And so what he does is he doesn't have a software development background. What he does is like reset passwords, right, for different users and things. And even resetting password today is being done manually. So he actually using Agile Point to do that first, to automate that. Okay, and then from there, in the first year, he built 10 applications. Second year, built 19. And the third year, the target right now is 40. Okay, this is one. And this is, again, right, this is very, very, inspiring, right? Just to know how a small organization now can also participate in doing digital transformation, right? And because if you're going to compete with that shortage of software developers right away, right, that's going to be a big hurdle, just if you do not have a lot of budget, right? So this is really what we do. This is another example. We talk about Fortune 100. Now let's take it to the largest company now, right? In this case here, they built 8,000 applications over the last 15 years, right? By IT together with some other service provider consultants. But every one of them have become legacy, right? As part of digital transformation, they need to rebuild them. But they say it took us 15 years to build 8,000. How long is it going to take us to rebuild them? Right. So one thing to do is how can you really have to cut down the time. And secondly is if I can reduce the number of applications I need to create, that will also help you cut down the time. Right. So because we do not do code generation. Right. So every model you build with Agile Point through a simple configuration, it can now serve for different variations of the same use cases. So because of that, you do not have to build 8,000 for 8,000. If it's a code generation, then it's more likely 8,000 for 8,000, right? And without code generation, give you that flexibility. Okay. And the second, so they did that in 2 years. But most excitingly is that everything they build needs to run in a large global operation of Fortune 100. So scalability and governance has to be a given, right? And the other thing, 2000 is use case agnostic. But more excitingly, right, after we learned how they build it, it was actually built by system developers, right? So if you click on the link here, right, you hear the story of Gary. And Gary was telling about his story. He say he's a procurement expert. He worked at this company as a procurement, as a procurement for, I think, more than 15 years. And the company will come to him and some people similar to him in other departments and say, we need to rebuild all of this. You know the requirement. Now we got a platform like Agile Point. Now go build it. And that's how they built a lot of those applications. And now here's another example. This is taking it even further to that super mission critical complex scenario. It's got 2 Fortune 100 gonna merge together, right? And they say we're gonna merge together, but we cannot like the traditional merger. Like we legally merge now, but we remain as a separate companies. We need to make sure these 2 companies operate together operationally in 12 months, right? To do that, they need to create a large number of cross-functional applications. And they have some of the very well-known, well-established products, specialized building cross-functional, but they don't see they can break through the productivity barrier to build a large number, right? For example, more than 100 in 12 months versus a traditional solution. They already have maybe been able to build 10 in 5 years, right? So that's also a way that they adapted the platform, but empower the system developers from the different business units to do that, right? So when they do that, and we actually also found, right? I know that you probably work with, your company may already adopted RPA as well. We found a lot of company, they have those BPM or workflows, but they hit the productivity barrier, right? So we just shared earlier that case. And so they adopt RPA, they thought that may be the solution. But then more and more companies now realize RPA is very valuable for certain use cases, but it's really not a continuous process improvement framework. And there are some challenges to do with that. So, and this is also where the system developers, right, got in, right, be able to leverage a platform like Agile Point and then start creating hybrid application together with RPA to get the best of both technology, right, to create a solution that is, can be created a lot faster, but it can really sustain into the digital transformation. So in a way, so this is really where that you can take system developer to this level, not just create simple applications, but you can also get to that, create that enterprise class cross-functional. This is really where we see that, right, how the organization will really transform from the development perspective. Used to be IT-centric development only, but now they are able to bring business unit-driven development. And in the business unit, there's individuals who are system developers, right? So now this is really where that I think if you follow the leading analysts, right, like Gardner or Forrester, right, this is what everybody is talking about. This is the blueprint for every enterprise, for every organization in terms of how you will evolve your development model from IT-centric to become hybrid, right? Because this is the first time ever in the history that IT and business can actually work hand in hand to drive the transformation. But it takes a certain, it takes a system development, a local technology that can truly enable sustain system development. Not only make sure that it's sustainable, but also empower system developers to be able to create those more enterprise class cross-functional applications, right? So here, if, like I say, if we still have time, right? I would take 15 minutes for Yongsen just to give you a sense, right, how the platform look like to empower the enterprise system development.
Okay, thank you, JC. Okay, I guess everyone can see my screen. Okay, I'll take about like 10 to 15 minutes to quickly do a quick demo about Agile Point platform. Okay, what you can see here is Azure Point low-code, no-code platform. From the top, you can see that they actually separate into different modules. So the first one will be the work center, more focused on the end user. This means that when the end user come in, they actually come here to manage their tasks and see all their tasks over here. Okay, I'll quickly go through, flash out some of the module, but later we'll focus more on the app builder, where how the citizen developer come in can build the apps. Okay. So here you can see that this end user, for example, I can come inside here. I can see all the tasks is assigned to me, how many tasks is overdue, and then how do I manage all the tasks. And at the same time, if let's say I want to like submit a new request, they can also do that at the work center as well. So this is the application, for example, like available to this particular user. And the next one will be the manage. Okay, this one is more for IT admin, where they come in to, for example, like manage the running process, or they want to manage all the user permission. For example, we can also create user group for certain citizen developer. Maybe they can only design the process, but they can, and then there may be the certain party will need to review the process, that only they can publish and release the process to the entire organization. And yeah, the next one will be the app builder. Yeah, as mentioned by JC, here we can actually cover full stack development of the application. So from here you can see that first we have the data entity is part of one of the data layer provided by Azure Point. And when let's say you try to build an app, right, you can see that we also support different type of application. Here we have like process-based application, which usually is a very long running process, might involve a lot of approval. And they also have something like a data-centric application, which we call a form-based application. So from here, they can actually choose what they want to build. And as you can see here, it's all wizard-based. So when they're trying to create a new application, they just need to follow all the screen to fill in the information. And when we come to here, you can see that Azure Point also support different type of data source. Yeah, it means to some non-technical user, I mean citizen developer, even data entity is a very simple tools for them to create tables, column, and so on. But to them, they might not. It's still too hard for them. So you can see that Azure Point also support different type of data source. I mean, how they store the data when they're trying to create the application. And Excel is one of the very good example where everybody know Excel. So they can even like create Excel table and then put in all the name and then into a worksheet. And then they can upload to Azure Point, maybe a SharePoint or a certain path. And then they can actually use Azure Point to build app and store the data. Everything will be put inside the Excel file. So this will be very easy for the seasoned developer to quickly build up a lot of things without need to know like all these technical jargon like database, all those things. And maybe we take a quick look on the data entity, which is provided by Azure Point. As you can see, everything will be again in very user-friendly format. You can see that the list of field over here, and then we can actually see what kind of data is having here. And of course, on top of that, we also provide certain advantages like you can control like the permission, I mean, who can view or add or delete the data and so on. So this one, again, once we go through the training, I mean, citizen developer will be able to easily like create all the table and then data structure and so on. And yeah, the next one will be the business logic. Okay, so once we have the data ready, and then this is where the process designer coming in, where the citizen developer able to construct and then build all the logic, workflow, and so on. As you can see on the left part, right, we have about 900 over activity, and then support up to 100 plus system. So for example, like let's say I want to work with database. So this is with all activity or the interaction we can actually work together with database. And there are more things like, for example, that UiPath. Okay, just now you see the slide that Azure actually can work well together with UiPath. So we can actually like on the process, maybe on certain step after approval, I can actually trigger some UiPath job and then to do some automation. And then once it's done, it's come back to Azure Point. So this actually gives you more governance for the entire process. And there are more things like other activity, like maybe digital signature. And then, yeah, there's also other like Google Drive and a list of like all these Microsoft related Azure IoT and so on. So all this again, it really depends on the user, what they want to use. So we actually cover all these things. I mean, all the popular system is already covered here. Of course, JC also mentioned that we actually have a framework. Yeah, we even enable the IT team to come here to create their own library, so that they can actually create their own activity library and then publish here and let the citizen developer to use. And yeah, the next one will be the UI layer, where they can come here, they can see the eForm designer. Here again, yeah, on the left hand side, I think there's 700 over, there's 770 plus different control. Everything with drag and drop. For example, like the text box, text area. So it's very easy to use, and then they do not need any coding. For example, I add a new field, and then I put in the label, what's the name, and then is it a mandatory? Okay. And while designing, they immediately can do the test. So for example, I can do a preview, and then I can test out the form and see whether everything is okay or not. So as you can see, all these things again, you do not need any coding at all. Yeah. And yeah, beside the app, I mean, there are also other component like page builder. Let them do like maybe change the portal UI, and then, for example, like I can create a certain landing page to totally make it different compared, from the existing Azure Point product. And yeah, the last one, once you have, for example, like build up a lot of application, you may collect a lot of data and so on. Here, Azure Point also give you a lot of out-of-box report. For example, here you can see that there are different type of report to monitor to see how efficient the process and so on. One of the example here is the process effectiveness. For example, I already pre-select one of the process. We can see that, okay, how many is completed, how many is canceled, and then the percentage, everything will be calculated over here. Of course, yeah, this one only focus on the business operation. Analytics, I mean, the reporting modules also allow the user to create their own report. So here are some of the few examples. And you can see that this is an invoice amount by status. And then we have some bar chart. And yeah, maybe we have a tables over here. Again, all this is very easy to use. It will be like something like visual based, just like something like how you create Excel reporting as well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk about a little bit on one or two more side on the governance side, where the IT admin actually come here to monitor the process. So I mean, Azure Point also actually audit everything in details over here. For example, on the data side, we can have a data tracking. We can actually see when and who changed the data, everything. So even though you see on the front end, it's very easy and simple. I mean, so actually at the back end, Azure Point also able to provide a very good governance to make sure that what the application building by the citizen developer, they are able to control and manage well. And yeah, another one, yeah, this is the example of the form-based application where we can actually quickly, easily to build up, maybe store data in the Excel file, and then yeah, and save the data and so on. Yeah, basically, I already quickly go through the Azure Point product, and yeah, maybe I can give back to JC to add on anything. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this takes about just 5 minutes to can you stop sharing?
Yeah, I'm doing that. Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this just take about 5 minutes to wrap it up, and then maybe we can go into a Q&A. So thank you, Yongsen. And as a matter of fact, Yongsen is actually working with quite a few of our customers actually in Indonesia, right? And so they actually taking the platform, they're actually developing these capabilities, assistant development, using Azure. Use Azure Point to create application, but at the same time, right, they started training up assistant developers along the way. And so just kind of wrap it up, right? I hope that based on what you're seeing, right, even the Yongsen did not have time to really show you the detail how you build one, right? There are videos available on Azure Point, training.azurepoint.com. You can actually see just an example. And everything Yongsen was showing you that visually drag and configuration and drag and drop configuration, right? Is that normally you have to, traditionally you have to do that by coding, right? But today, as again, right, with Agile Point, you do that configuration, you never get turned into code. When you come back, you want to change now, you still just stay at that configuration to do that. And that's really key, right? To enable a lot of people to really be able to, you can start to envision now, you can actually develop a very different future, right, for you. And we see the innovation that we create, right? Also have to align, as I mentioned at the very beginning, right? It's about our social mission, right? What can we do to make a difference for our society? And it's about be able to reskill and upskill anyone, right, to become assistant developers and become a digital innovators. Right? Here's just a few examples. Michael, right? He's got a master's degree, and he worked at the supermarket chain. And then he came to Agile Point, that internship program, to learn about that program. We talk about become automation application developers, coding skill non-mandatory, right? He actually later got hired by IBM. And now he's actually working for the US Department of Defense, creating application, right? It's just very inspiring to see how, Michael's life has totally changed, right? And remember, Michael represents that college graduate and now did not have, but now computer science. So Palo, about 60%, 50-60% of the populations, they do not have college degree, but they have high school diploma. So Paulo is actually an example, right? A high school, someone with high school diplomas. This is what he did before he started working with Agile Point, right? So same thing, he came to the programs, and later on he started creating application now for some of the large enterprise. Today, he's not only know how to create application with Agile Point, he's actually become a trainer. He's training our customers, right? Training enterprise companies. Agile, teach them Agile Point, right? Again, if you see how he is transformed in just about a year, right? And that's really what truly inspiring, right, for us. And we have also, through this initiative, right, through PMI, we, we think the opportunity to work with PMI through this initiative. We also met people such as Purity, right? Purity and her team is in Kenya, right? They have this initiative called I Dreamed of Africa. And their mission is to upskill and reskill more than 1 million African youth, right, into digitalization force in the next 10 years. And a lot of these young people, they may not have computer science degree, or they may not even have gone to college, right? So again, this is how we can make a big difference to the society. And you get a copy of this, the PowerPoint, and those are some actual system developers are sharing about their stories, right? So go to YouTube, right, and then you can search that. And we actually play this at the recent PMI Global event in December in Las Vegas, right? And our vision is not about just empower someone, assistant, become assistant developers, and you can create applications. Not just instead of what's the next step? We are looking at enabling someone to become assistant entrepreneurs, right? So here's an example, right? This is one of the partners we have. They have a team of 2. None of them are computer science. None of them have computer science background. They just have domain expertise of a certain industry. In this case here, they have a domain expertise in legal, and they have created a product. Go to their website, right? And then you can see, except that this solution here, right, you can see it's built on top of Agile Point, just like what Yongsen showed you, and they will be able to configure, change the logo, and then be able to create those applications. And they have, and their customers, many of them are Fortune 500 companies, right? And again, this is just another game-changing success, right? And we are seeing another partner. They create a safety management systems, and they have a team of 3. And majority of the business professionals know the requirements, okay? And not only this kind of more like the business applications, right? This is also where that the same has been adopted, right? This is actually some of our use cases in Taiwan, right? That's where a lot of manufacturing, right? IoT, okay? And as you can see, that is how it's being used to empower those, the subject matter expert in those industries to be able to build that, right? So briefly, right, we started in 2003, we have more than 1,000 customers, and our headquarters is in Silicon Valley, California. We have offices globally. We work with a lot of global companies and global enterprises. And as a company, we are a technology company, but we like to see ourselves as an innovation and purpose-driven company. And in that way, we see, yes, we want to achieve commercial success, but we like to see that to be a side product, because our ability to create innovations that can make a meaningful difference to our society. Okay, and this is where AgilePoint has been, over the years since 2008, has been covered by different leading analysts across multiple different categories. Right, just to wrap it up, I mean, we have seen this slide earlier, right? We talk about the software paradigm has stuck in the same requirement, get developed into code. Either the code is developed by hand, by developers directly, or it's actually code generation. That has been the paradigm, right? And we believe with a non-code generation based local no-code processing developers, that we are able to change the game. Okay, that's why system development really is the biggest enabler of change of a generation, because yes, it's been decades. The software development paradigm has not changed. But now, with us all working together, we might be able to make that happen very quickly. That's it. I don't know, usually you have a Q&A session or not. I don't know if anyone has, a question. We still have time. Otherwise, right, I mean, I guess I'd be happy to take any, a few questions.
Yeah, we have question and we have time for sure, Jesse.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have my question. Maybe I will ask you first before others asking their question. I saw one of your slides picturing the citizen developer and the professional developer. So my question is, the citizen developer, in your opinion or in your vision, are they going to take up more jobs or let's say functions, function of the professional developer or the traditional developer, or they are the citizen developer actually focusing on a new, more specific segment, let's say more to a user side? What do you think, Jesse?
Very, very good question, right? Because as I say, right, we are, I mean, this is a slide, right? I mean, almost every organization have come from an IT-centric development, right? There's an IT department, anything like to create application, go to IT, right? And remember, right, this is really what we are saying, right? This is a blueprint for every organization to be able to support digital transformation as a journey. Okay, and you need a model, right, to be able to support that, because IT alone, right? I mean, firstly, we face that shortage of software developers, right? So in a way, right? So in a way, to answer your question, is first, IT, right, will work with business unit, right? In the business unit, the system developers. And the reason, as we explained earlier, why this is important, right? I mean, I think let me go back to this slide here. As I mentioned earlier, that when we are an IT-centric development, right? Almost every organization at the same time, let's say, yeah, we also have a huge IT backlog, right? Why? Why does the IT backlogs? Right, because there are too many, right? IT doesn't have the bandwidth, doesn't have the time and resource. There's different constraints they cannot get to, and because IT-centric development-based model, right? And that's why organizations rely on. As I mentioned, that IT tend to be divided into a lot of different teams, right? This is a team specializing doing SAP. This is a team specialized doing CRM like Salesforce, right? If you based on whatever the technology you use, but that team, right? If they're gonna build a form, they're gonna build a workflow, they're gonna build something. They will try to do. They normally try to do everything in that system they were assigned to. Right. So in that case, right, that's why we say that it becomes more like a silo, right? But as a business, right, as a part of digital transformation, right, as you know, we also talk about we need to improve our customer journey, right, the customer experience, right? We need to provide, and we also need to deliver changes faster to deliver a better customer experience. And let me just, and in that case, right, that's when we talk about the cross-functional. But the cross-functional type application is really difficult for IT. Remember, we say we have to, currently, right, we go through this, right? We explain the requirement to developers. Imagine this requirement keep on changing. Imagine this requirement, cross-functional application, you need to understand the requirement from different business functions, and the requirement keep on changing. Try to go through this. That's what it ended up like this. Right? She said, I work in 15 years. I only work on 5 projects, 5 applications. It's because everything moving so slow. And really, that's also why, right? A lot of this kind of application will be best built by business subject matter experts who become assistant developers. Right? Because they are not, because they are not the type of applications that will be suitable for IT. And that's also why, as I mentioned, that business already have those needs. It's not just today, but those tend to just become part of the IT backlog. Okay, so it's not that, but in this case, right, IT can continue to focus on the foundation, the infrastructure. Also, right, also remember we talk about why it's important that you need to have this working together, right? If you come here, that's what also Yongsen was saying. Through here, this is where system developer can create applications, right? Remember we talk about this company created more than 2,000 just by mostly by system developers, because they were creating out of here, because there's a lot of out-of-the-box components can be now assembled, composed into different applications. But you see here, extend, right? IT can continue to write code if they need to, but they can use a local layer. Now they can create additional no-code activity, so they can continue to expand here. When they expand more, now you can empower, right, your system developer to do more. So IT is playing, the difference is that IT now plays a more enabling and also governance role versus IT here. IT here is being, in here, IT is being asked to deliver the finished products. But the finished product takes a lot of business, know-hows, right? The requirements, and that requirement keep on changing. Does that make sense? So if you think about building a building, right? IT is the one that comes, set up the skeleton very quickly, right? Set up the, all the, get you that buildings and everything, but business can come in to finish all the decorations and everything. Did that make sense?
Yeah. That's clearly describes in more detail what is the function of this citizen development and the new models. Well, one more question from me. I saw many questions from the participants. One more quick question from me. How is it going to change the industry? I mean, let's say one company, a service company, serving the end users. Let's say it's renting car. It has ERP, and traditionally it use the ERP available in the market, and also CRM to deal with the customer, and internal maybe have scheduling software. And how is this going to be changed by the new model? Is it ERP is still needed, or what is the application?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good question, right? Very good question. And I appreciate that there's a lot of questions, right? And then this is exactly why, right? We want to really to to inspire, right? Inspire people to, open the vision, the eyes and the vision, and then have those questions, right? And just in case we cannot cover all the questions, be happy to collect the questions, right? And then we'll be able to reply that in written. All the team, right? Like you see Yongsen and CK, they're actually based in KL, Malaysia, right? So they can also schedule local sessions if needed. We also work with company in Indonesia. But to answer your question, right? So I think what you're saying here is, hey, I'm a company, right? And I have an ERP, I have a CRM, I have different systems today, right? And today I, assuming, right? And this is really where the different, I'm serving my customer. So I create different applications like this. Okay, for example, this is a order, right? Order application for your customer who order something. They order something now, assuming you order a car. Customer order a car now. 2 days later, they come and say, hey, I decided to change my order, right? But how easy can you do that? Do they have to call the customer service department, and then they have to, and then the customer service say, okay, I'll try to enter that, and then you will receive a notification? Or can you actually make that become self-serve? Right? So for example, that may be one difference, right? But the other thing is sometimes you call, say, I want to make the change now. They say, well, that's too late, right? That's too late. That's already now. You cannot change now. Or anytime you can change. That's depending on how flexible the application is now, right? But we know, remember I talked about here, right? What it was a spike. I don't know, like I said, I know a lot of you are too young, right? You probably don't remember what's .com, right? .com was where the e-commerce, right? If you think about the e-commerce started, right? Amazon started from, .com. But
We will Google it, Jesse.
E-commerce was actually, if you think about e-commerce, wise, that's supply chain. Right, supply chain. You buy something, right? Where do you come from? Which supplier, which warehouse, and everything. And the thing is, e-commerce is about, I want to optimize each transaction, right? And that's when people are saying that, but I buy all this technology, right? I buy the ERP, I buy the supply chain management, I buy this, but I did not get agility because everything's code-based to connect together, right? Kind of similar to here. Even have a different system here. I connect them together by code. Okay. But when I commit anything created by code, now it's not easy to change now. It's not flexible because here I need to know if I say, if customer place an order now, they may decide to change this, they may decide to change that. If I can only think about 5 potential scenarios, I will have that 5 potential already written in code. If else this, if else, but what if it's another new type of request I was not written in code? Sorry, it doesn't work, right? But what we are saying is, right? What we are saying is, but if we build it with this, then this can change on demand. Okay. But to answer your question, you say, but what does a term of ERP, what does the ERP do now? Right? What is, if I have a different system? We also remember what I say earlier, right? When we go to company today, what we are saying is, usually if you look at the system, right, there's at a very high level, you separate system into 2 different types. One is system of records and system of engagement. System of records more like the data, right? So if you look all the system, right, doesn't matter this is ERP, this is CRM. These systems, the most important function they provide is being the system of record for that business functions. The system of engagement, for example, you started creating workflow now. You started creating how the user will interacting with the system. That's a system engagement. But as we say earlier, if an IT using SAP, they will be creating a system engagement based on SAP, and if ERP is not very strong in creating process, then they do a lot of coding to try to achieve what they think about the process. But it's created by coding, is very rigid. But ended up, you have different teams try to create a system engagement by coding, right? And so in a way, right, in a way, we're simply saying is to kind of answer your question, yes, we still need them, but we should use those systems as what the main purpose is, to be that system of records. Okay, don't use code to try to supplement that system engagement that's not their main function. But you do the system, so this is system engagement, right? The cross-functional and those, but don't do those using code tied to them, right? So here now, those system engagement now are not based on code. They still leverage them, but they're not based on code. So this system engagement now is become future-proof. Okay, instead of accomplishing this by coding in those systems. So this system should serve as a system of records, and now system engagement, right, should become also part of your asset. Because how do you do this differently? You will deliver different customer experience. That become part of your company's differentiated competitiveness. And how can I make this very flexible, very dynamic, right? It delivers a better customer experience. And to do that, right, so now, but if I do it that way, if you like I say, that's my specialty, that's my spatial differentiated competitiveness, that shouldn't be impacted because I use different ERPs. But today, people, in this case here, a lot of companies try to implement this. Oh, I'm using this ERP, then they try to use that ERP and using a lot of coding to accomplish that. That's why you hear a lot of companies spending years to implement an ERP. It's actually they're spending a lot of coding to try to implement this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very good explanations, Jesse. And yeah, we have many questions. I will go to the first question. It's from Maya Wijaya. I will read the question, and then it is about the best practice. How the question is, how is the best practice to control information or data security if citizen developers are empowered to develop enterprise system, especially if the requirement is needed to access customer personal information? I think it is related to the architecture, the traditional model and the new model. What do you think, Jesse?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. I have a slide that I forgot to include that, I guess. Hold on a second here. Let me see.
I'm thinking it's going to be operating differently than our traditional way of working with the system, the digital or the software system that we have now.
Yep.
And you have to explain that.
Yep, definitely. Give me a second here. I think I forgot to include one slide here. Let me see if I. So basically, right, this is actually a very good question. Okay, very good question. Hold on, what happened? Hold on. So that's a very good question. As a matter of fact, right, if you go to the PMI webinar, this one webinar was about governance, right? And that webinar received the most views, right? And because that's one of the biggest challenge, like as we say, right? We are changing the paradigm, right? We're changing from, we are evolving the paradigm from used to be only IT, right? IT or technical professionals. They know security. They are a lot more waivers in all those. But now if I enable business users, they are not as aware, right? But they can learn. Part of PMI system development program, right? Is actually that education to educate system developer to understand those as well. But specifically, right, when it comes to the governance, right, there's a security, right? Of course, right, you mentioned about the, the personal information, right? There are certain security certification, right? I mean, from ISO 27001 to SOC 2, right, to HIPAA, right? Those are all have things to do, or I mean, they all have things to do with protecting the data, right? So those will still be there, right? Those are part of the infrastructure. Those will be, so IT will be there. But the thing is, if I want to access the data now, right? For example, with Agile Point, and that's what we're saying, the layered, right? The layered governance framework, right? So you see, this is a layer governance framework. You see data, right? The data layer. So this would, would connect you, if you're gonna connect to different data sources, right? Do you have a permission to connect to the data source? If you connect to the data source, for example, that could be your ERP, that could be your CRM, right? But what kind of permission do you have? Okay, and the other thing is, and so can you control all the way to a record level, right? So you can see here, right? In order to enable, as I mentioned earlier, right? This is actually one of the biggest concern of a lot of IT. Say, I cannot trust system developers, right? They don't have the knowledge, right? I mean, I cannot just let them just do whatever they want, right? And you have to protect the data and the securities and everything, right? And so this is really whether a local no-code technology system, right, provides a governance in a way, as I say earlier, that to give IT as much governance as they need, so they feel comfortable. But at the same time, right, IT still have the flexibility. Having a layer governance framework makes a big difference, right? Because now they can have, for different type of application, for example, if the application is to do with HR, application to do with finance, right? Or the application to do with approval, right? Then they may need different combination of different type of permissions at different level. Now you can have that different combination of different permutations. Still give that freedom, but I can still make sure that the key, right? The key can be controlled. And this, again, right? If you're gonna use a very simple example, think about the building again. In the building, there are 5 different rooms. Okay, we're gonna control, right? We have a front door, and if I only have a simple governance at the front door, the 5 different rooms, there's no doors, right? But I tell you, assistant developer, okay, I'll let you in, but you can only go to room number 1. You cannot go to other rooms. But they walked in now. There's no doors on each room. You cannot control that. You can only rely on them, say they will follow the rule, right? But the next level now, we put a door on each room. So now you can close them, right? You can only leave the door open. But if they go and poke, right? If they go and open the door on the room number 2, you cannot control that. The third is, the third level now, right? You should say, okay, we put a lock on each door, right? If the lock is a traditional lock, key lock, then each time I'm let somebody in, I say you can only go to room number 1. IT has to go there now and then lock the number 2, 3, and 4. That's too cumbersome, right? But if I make the lock a digital lock, IT can actually do that from remote. Then they start having a lot of flexibility in combination now to control. They can even control that you go in there, door number 1, okay, you can, like I say, here's a key that you can open, right? You can open, and then you can go to room number 2, maybe only for 20 minutes. So now they have a lot of different way of how they can control that now, right? So that's kind of what we are saying. Having that layer governance framework enables IT having that, the control, right? The sense of comfort that they are able to support the system development at this level, right? This is a very, very good question. And again, right, there's a PMI webinars on this, and that we were on the webinar together with a few of our fellow, also other local vendor partners, right? So feel free to get on there, because you can hear from others how they talk, other vendors, how they talk about this topic. But this is a very, right, again, that's what we're saying, right? Really, it's easy to say, right? It's about the rubber hits the road, how can it really work? And that's why I say this example here, there's no other way. I mean, if you work in a large company, global operations, the governance has to be there.
Okay, yeah. The next question, Jesse, I think I will go to this one from Yoman Widiarsa. The question is about the low code or no code quality. Is it equal to traditional code or traditional developer? So maybe it's about the technology itself, the low code, or the implementation or the developer. Could you comment on this, Jesse?
Okay. So I think the question is a low-code, no-code quality equal to traditional coding and developers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good question. Very good question. As a matter of fact, right? As a matter of fact, I'll answer the question in two ways, okay? Because this is very, look, right? I shared that how many people apply here, okay? And you know, here, I would say about 80 to 90% are the people without computer science and software development background. But you'll be surprised that we have a lot of new computer science graduates also apply the job. Okay, and we asked them why, which I know the answer, right? But I asked them why. Almost everybody said, yes, I applied, but everybody told me I need to have 2 years coding experience before they will hire me. Okay, even have a computer science degree, they just fresh graduate. Why? Why? Because coding, right, is very tedious, very easy to make mistakes. And that's why most of the companies want you to make mistakes in other places before you come, before they hire you, right? Because it takes some time to hone your skills so that it's not that you will not make mistake anymore. You will make fewer mistakes. They hope you will make fewer mistakes, right? And those mistakes becomes a quality issue, right? And to fix a mistake sometimes costs a lot of money. Okay, to answer your question, so from there, I'm gonna go to this example here. Okay, go to those a few. Here's Michael, right? He did not have software development background. He come to the program for about 4 months, right? And then he started working for IBM. He did not have a computer science degree. He didn't have 2 years coding experience, right? Same thing, right? Paulo. Same thing. He went through the program and then he started developing applications. You know, for example, right? If it's a computer science graduate, if I go to this customers, right? This customer, right? Fortune 100. If I tell them, say, hey, I have this project, it will be developed by coding. I have this fresh computer science graduates. The customer will say, no. We need somebody with 7 to 10 years coding experience because our application is mission critical. We need somebody that really much, you know, well-versed in coding. We need a higher quality code. Okay, but imagine, right? Paulo with this background after 4 months planning, and he is actually creating application now for this customer. Why? Because you know, like I say, how many times you hear people say that, okay, developer A create application, but developer A move on now. You have developer B coming to try to fix a problem. They fix one problem, they break another one. They create another one. Right? So local, no code, right? Because, right, I mean, doesn't matter, right? If you do code generation, right, and things, I mean, you more consistent in terms of what you get. But writing custom, you know, you write code by hand, then you really rely on your experience now, right? So in a way, right, in a way, that's what I'm saying, that, I mean, in this case here, right, all these examples are just validating, right? Validating that if I'm, you know, if of course, right, because they, you know, they are not a computer science trained, and we don't really, you know, we don't expect them to write all the coding, right? But how can you enable still create the quality, scalable applications, right? It actually facilitates that. And then, right? And then remember we talk about this is actually enable IT to do that. So their quality is going to rely on IT, right, to write code to create those additional activities as well. right? So generally speaking, right, when we need to create application at a large number at scale, local no code will help guarantee, right, more sustaining that quality. Okay, of course, right, security and governance is a big thing, right? That's important, but just found the, but if you rely, but however, if you rely on certain developers to write code, then that's a different story, right? If you teach them, you should make code. I mean, but in our case, right? In our case, we are proven, right? Again, all these cases that they actually, without the coding background, they can to create. They don't have to be 7 years. They don't have to be 5-year code developers. The customers, right? And no problem. Help them create application because the platform guarantees that quality.
Okay, Jesse, one more question. I think this is the last one because we have come to end of our session time. From Hotba Pasaribu, he gave 3 questions, but I will pose to you one, the last one. He is interested, and for every one of us who is also interested to learn more about your application, low-code and no-code application, and the capabilities of this agile point to business. How do we get the documentations? Is there a document or tutorial that can we access that is shared?
Yes. I did see the question there in terms of how this would disrupt the, the programmers or developers, right? I mean, firstly, remember we talked about there's a huge shortage of the programmers, I mean, developers, right? So you really, firstly, right? I mean, for us as a society, want to enable all the organization can all go through a digital transformation so we can better serve everyone, right? That takes a lot, everybody say we don't have enough developers, right? So I don't envision that we are ever gonna, in any short time, it's gonna, we still need developers. And remember what we showed earlier, that developers, the role now, right? Because they are the precious, scarce resources, right? So if we rely on them, if we request them to deliver this finished products, they are not gonna be able to do a lot for us, right? So we're gonna have the developers now, right? Potential developers now playing the role of being the enabler, right? Remember here now, being the enabler, being the and govern, right? Playing the roles enabling and the governance, right? So they are able to create additional empowering building blocks for certain developers, right? Because they are the scarce resource. Okay. Second question is, if you like to learn more about AgilePoint, right? As a matter of fact, simply go to training.agilepoint.com. Okay. Training.agilepoint.com. This is not a full training, but this is more like a getting started. Just get an overview of an AgilePoint function, like the functionality. You have the different videos. So Yongsen didn't get a chance to really go down to each module, right? So you can get some idea, like build your first applications. Okay, and this is like step by step. You can actually see how a real application, right? Remember I talked about a full stack application, right? Including front end, logic, and the back end is all, you're building it from day one. Okay, so here, and then if you're interested, right? This you can also go to the AgilePoint website. You can request for a trial, right? And then we have a cloud-based tenant. We can create that for you and for you to get hands-on.
Okay, very sorry to participant who I could not ask the question. We will take notes of the question, and we may forward this to Jesse and teams. We have come to end of our session time, so I think that's it. This is the end. Thank you, Jesse, for the time and for sharing your knowledge and expertise. with us and for all the valuable insights. And I would like to ask help from Mas David to close the session and take picture before that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I think we
Really
will
enjoyed
take
the
picture for
session.
now. Can you please turn on the camera? And Jesse, can you please unshare your screen?
Okay, let me exit my screen.
Okay, once again, thank you for sharing, Jesse. Yeah, it is very interesting. Citizen development already in KMI in the last few years, I think, and it's definitely will make regular people can make their own application. I think that's great. Okay, I will start taking the picture. The first page. Okay, it's done.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jesse. Mas David, thank you.
Thank you. See you in the next pranks.
Talk to
Thank
again.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Have a good
Thank you, Jesse.
Take care.
Thank you, Jesse.
David, go live ya.
Okay, okay.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Thank you.